And is the stenographer on board? Is that who's recording the meeting, or?
I just made the meeting live, which made the recording sound, but I don't know if there's a stenographer on board, but I don't know if they're in on like a different name. So if you are here, make yourself known, I guess.
Right. But regardless, let's get going. So I'm going to call the meeting to order at 6:03. And thank you everyone for showing up. Mitch, just stay with us and be patient, because public participation is towards or at the end of the meeting. So moving forward, pledge allegiance. Dennis, you want to lead us in the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance
to the
to the United States of America,
of the United States of America,
and to
to the republic for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under God,
God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And obviously, we're at the crux right now of Memorial Day. So everybody get out there and support our troops. I know I'm driving someone in the parade on Sunday, a veteran to be named, and actually looking forward to it, because it was canceled last year. So moving forward, the roll call is obvious with the names and the people that are listed. If there's anyone that is not, for whatever reason, on this screen scenario to be recorded, please speak up. Not hearing anybody speak up, then I'll turn the meeting over to Dr. Pinto for application review.
All right, thank you very much, John. The first application that we have is on 68 Water Street in South Norwalk. It's a pre-application, and I've asked Mr. Robert Sonicson to participate and give us an overview of the application. But the applicant proposes to, excuse me, to replace a previously existing deteriorated waterfront bulkhead structure with a 180-foot linear wooden pier and timber bulkhead running parallel along the river shoreline. The north 85-foot section of the bulkhead will be constructed immediately waterward of the remnants of the deteriorated wooden pier and timber bulkhead.
Let me interrupt you for a second, please. Michelle, can you kindly send Chris McDonald an invitation to join the meeting? He hasn't gotten one. And he said,
yes, I just resent him one, so hopefully it's coming in. If not, you can try and get him to go through the public platform, and I could move him over to a panelist.
Right.
But I'm working on it. Hopefully it gets in soon.
all right, thank you.
All right, well, to continue that, the northern 85-foot section of the bulkhead will be constructed immediately waterward of the remnants of the deteriorated wooden pile and timber bulkhead that's currently there. At midpoint of the property's shoreline, the bulkhead will be stepped back landward about 10 feet, and the remaining 85-foot long section of the bulkhead will continue to the southern property boundary, running parallel to the northern section of the bulkhead. Approximately 1,000 feet or cubic feet of fill will be placed landward of the northern bulkhead section below the high tide line, and about a 10-foot wide wooden deck will be constructed along the water side of the southern 85-foot section of the bulkhead. The dock elevation will be about 9 feet from the National Geodetic vertical datum, a height equivalent with the top of the bulkhead, and the waterward side of the deck will be supported by a series of wooden piles driven 10 feet on the center. The proposed work also includes the installation of a 25-foot by 6-foot wide floating dock with dock stop supports, a mechanism for resting on the bottom, preventing resting on the bottom, and for the recreational vessels, and going to be joined with a 22-foot by 3-foot aluminum ramp. The dock will be secured to a timber pier using some metal chains to allow the dock to rise and fall with the tide cycle. And I've asked Mr. Sonicson to give us an overview, because we have a number of questions with regard to that property and the proposed work that is planned.
Thank you very much. My name is Rob Sonicson. I'm a registered professional engineer with Waldo and Associates. I've been involved in this project since the mid 90s. Just to give you a little bit of history, the property, we did a lot of environmental review of the property because that was the biggest focus initially. And since the 1890s, the property has been an industrial site. It started out in the 1890s as a lumber yard. It then was converted to a coal yard. And Harrison Gans purchased the property sometime in the mid 20th century, and they operated a fuel oil business, first a coal business, then a fuel oil business on the site through the early 1990s. Then they got out of the fuel oil business, removed two very large above ground fuel oil tanks that were on the site, and started selling building materials. The current owner of the property purchased the property in 1997. Shortly after the purchase, the owner went into the site and needed to do cleanup work. Some of the cleanup work involved activities within the regulated area along the Norwalk River. And in 2000, the Connecticut Department of Environmental Protection issued a notice of violation for placement of basically shore protection riprap below the high tide line along the frontage of the river. That started a kind of a long period through starting in 2004 and running through 2012, in which we worked with the department to come up with a plan to improve the shorefront, remove the violation and stabilize and basically improve the property in general. A permit was finally issued. The number on the permit is 2004. So you can see that the application was submitted in 2004, but it was issued in February of 2012. That permit was identical to the permit that is currently before you and currently before the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection. The reason for that is that the 2012 permit had a 5-year permit duration. Starting in 2016, the applicant was required to get annual renewals if they hadn't completed the project by that time. What happened about the same time that the permit was issued was that the state of Connecticut Department of Transportation started talking to the property owner about using their property for staging for the walk railroad bridge replacement short distance upstream. And the DOT wasn't, the project, I'm sure you're familiar with it, it has evolved very slowly. And the DOT didn't really know whether they were going to condemn the property, whether they were going to use it for a big staging area. And so it didn't make any sense for the applicant to go forward with making the repairs to the bulkhead. And so they started doing annual extensions to their permit. They got an extension in 2016, 2017, 2018, and 2019, all for the same reason. We're talking with the DOT. We still haven't gotten any resolution, and we don't know what the DOT is planning on doing, if they're planning on doing anything with our property. There was a renewal request. There was a renewal notice that was sent to the owner in late 2019 saying you have to submit your renewal request letter by January of 2020. Our office has a record of a letter that was prepared, and we believe that it was sent to the department, but we don't have any receipts or acknowledgement from the department. And at the point that the permit expired, the DOT indicated that they couldn't find any record of our renewal request. So they basically said, your only option is to reapply for a new structures and dredging permit. And that's what we did. We prepared a new application for a structures dredging and fill permit. Once again, identical to the permit that was issued in 2012, and submitted it through the state system in March of 2021. And it's currently under review. The notices that were sent to the city are the required notices for any structures and dredging permit. So the notice gives a good description of what the plan is. There was an old wooden bulkhead along the northern portion of the property. The piles are all rotten and deteriorated. Nobody did anything with the waterfront. Harris and Gans really stopped operating sometime in the 70s, 80s. They weren't getting much delivery. And so they let the waterfront it was kind of the backyard. Everything was coming in off of Water Street. So the southern portion of the waterfront was a wooden dock structure that was in place as part of, and there are two dolphin structures that large barges were tied up to, sort of on the southern portion of the waterfront. There's still remnants of all of those things in place, but they certainly are derelict. They can't qualify as being continuously retained and maintained. So we're going through the process of trying to get an authorization to reestablish an improved waterfront. It's going to be a timber and wooden pile bulkhead, which will be, I think, very much in keeping with the waterfront along this section of the Norwalk River. At one point in time, we were going to do driven metal sheet pile, but they've kind of moved away, and they sort of wanted to have a more gentrified kind of looking waterfront at the site. They also decided that they applied for a single recreational dock at the same time that they were applying for the bulkhead repair.
Mr. Sonicson, should we have some diagrams that I think you sent over to Michelle. I think, Michelle, could you display those?
That's the same as these.
Huh?
That's identical.
I have their plan open if you want me to, if you just want it on this.
Well, we don't have Jeff.
This is all, maybe before we show the plans, we should talk a little bit more about the background as well.
Yeah. Well, I know
Mr.
that
Sonicson, you probably remember meeting us. It was 1998 or 1997 on the property. And it was Ms. Clark from the Harbor Commission and Chairman Callahan. And at the time, the owner was proposing a change of use. He was proposing office and a commercial use that wasn't water dependent from the previous water dependent use.
Yeah.
And that's the time when we observed the riprap, and the notice of violation was the following year of 1999. But at the time, the commission was reviewing the proposal for the reuse of the property from a water dependent use to retail and commercial. And in order to find that consistent, the commission was requiring the construction of a 25-foot wide walkway along the property, connecting the property to the north and the property to the south. And the condition of that was that the owner would post a bond to ensure construction of that. That was not posted, and the commission ultimately found that it was inconsistent with the harbor management plan. The notice of violation then came out in 1999, and nothing was done about that. As you said, the application was submitted in 2004, and the commission at that time also objected to that without any sort of discussion on how the violations were to be addressed and cleaned up. And as you said, it came back in 2012 with an approval from DEEP. And the approval was based, in our understanding, was not based on that the violations were corrected, but that the proposed work that you were permitted to do would have corrected the violations. In other words, instead of taking out the bulkhead that was not permitted, you would be building a new bulkhead. So it didn't make sense to take out the old one and put the new one in. But then that permit, we understood, expired. And now you're coming back with what I didn't realize that you had renewed it over time. But our issue, or I shouldn't say ours, the commission's issue over the last number of years, and I'm talking too much here, but we're certainly familiar with the railroad bridge because we've been working on aspects of that every day for 5 years. But the DOT's application to DEP still includes replacement of that bulkhead. And the replacement of that bulkhead is identified by DOT as a benefit of the Walk Bridge project because it would enhance the properties for future water dependent development. The other aspect of this work, the third aspect, is the Eversource proposal to put to underground the transmission lines the Eversource said along the property line of your client's property and the southern property. So we don't know the status yet of that, even though we've been asking for a number of questions over several years. So the issue the commission has is sorting out 3 different projects affecting your property. And at the current time, we're under the assumption that DOT already has this application to rebuild the bulkhead in their application that they've submitted to DEEP. So these are the things that we have to try to understand. And as you said, it's a long history. And I remember meeting you on the site in either 97 or 98 when we first started talking about this.
We haven't changed a bit.
Yeah, look,
except we have to talk on the computer now instead of in person, right?
Just
Jonathan, do you know anything about the Eversource's plans to do the horizontal digging of the transmission lines? Have they contacted you? Hello?
This is Rob Sonicson. I can give some response to the commission's comments. The one thing that I heard about the Eversource proposal, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago. I don't know anything at all about it. It just so happens that as I was going through the process of putting together the renewal application, well, the reason I put together the renewal application in all candor was because the property owner hit what they would call a sort of a stalemate log jam with DOT. They thought that they had a deal with regard to it. Then the DOT, I don't know the details of it because I wasn't involved in it, but the arrangement fell through. The DOT actually condemned the property immediately to the south of this property where the walkway was going to go. But they haven't done anything with this property still because they were looking to use what they felt was a more attractive alternative for staging. This property isn't that large. It's the largest in the area that's open, but they're talking about 250-foot steel beams and things like that. When I contacted Sue Jacobson from the Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, she said, Rob, why are you applying for another permit here? Because the DOT has already submitted a permit to us to build a new bulkhead and to dredge the river and to do a huge project on this waterfront. And I said, that's remarkable because my client, the owner of this property, had no idea that the DOT was applying for a permit on their property. And in all candor, they went back to the DOT, and a lot of this is somewhat confidential, I guess, but because it's a real estate transaction. But the last that they were told was that the DOT was still getting close on another alternative location that I'm sure you're familiar with. And the DOT may just not bother with this property at all.
Well, the issue was probably twofold. It's not only just as a staging for the Walk Bridge project, but the DOT also proposed to use as an alternative site for relocation of two vessels, the Seaport Association vessel and the maritime vessel, for bringing, instead of putting those vessels between the two bridges, which we feel is hazardous.
John, can I share my screen? I prepared a graphic for this because I wanted to sort out some of this for my own purposes.
Well, you're gonna have to talk to Michelle, Chris, because we don't have any screen sharing. Oh, you do? Okay. You got it?
Do you have it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we got it.
So here's the application we're considering. This is what they're proposing on their property. So I clipped that and superimposed that on the DOT's vessel relocation site plan too, which is the commission's preferred usage for that. The red line is the property line between the proposers. On the left is 68 Water Street. The right is whatever number that is. That's the one the DOT is proposing developing the parking lot. But as you can see, the dockage overhangs the property line fairly considerably, and would, block access to the dockage in this proposal, or at least the fix. Excuse me, frog in my throat. So, and then the other part, excuse me, these lines here are the proposed Eversource rerouting.
Right.
With the pull chambers are the boring chambers, whatever they would be, back on actually on this piece of property. Now, nobody's heard from Eversource. From everything I've heard from the consultants from the DOT, nobody's heard from Eversource in like over a year. They're keeping everybody in the dark. Kind of ironic for an electric company, but there you go. This is their last, which I think is sort of a 60%. They've been waiting forever for a 90% plan. So this is Eversource in relationship to your project.
Yes.
So it sort of jives that. And then from what we know is that the DOT is not proceeding on use of this site for use of the assembly of the trusses. They were going to do it on a barge on the waterfront using both these properties. They will either do it at Manresa, or if NRG has pulled the rug out from under them on that, they will be doing it in Alabama or upstate New York. So it's probably off the table as the assembly site, and they may not be pursuing your property, but this proposal that they have does not look like it's taken into consideration any usage of any of your usage of the waterfront, which may be DOT's fault, oversight, or it may be hard luck for you. I don't know how the DOT's weight plays in this.
John,
Yes, yes.
that's a very interesting, that's a good drawing that Chris put up.
Yes.
But going back just a little bit, in the DOT submitted materials for their project, and I don't have the exact reference, but they I thought made clear that they weren't building the new bulkhead on 68 Water Street for the purpose of the Walk Bridge project, to support the use of this project for staging. They clearly stated that it was that building that bulkhead would be the last part of the work here, and it would be a benefit of the Walk Bridge project, and that the properties would be enhanced for redevelopment. And then it was my understanding that the DEP had stated that if parts of the DOT's application that they were applying for were not for the purpose of building the bridge, then they shouldn't be included in the application. So we don't know what exactly is the intent of what DOT is doing now, because most recently they told us that they still had the bulkhead in their application. And if you remember, the contractor also confirmed that the bulkhead wasn't for the purpose of building the bridge. And we also saw another plan for the electric lines that was closer to the property line. And they presented that with the argument that was going to have less impacts on both properties, since it was go more closely on the line, and therefore it wouldn't interfere with redevelopment on one property more than the other. There's a lot of unanswered questions, but for the property owner, you think that one of the principal issues right now is that one of DOT's main proposals involves using the littoral rights of the property owner. And you think that they would recognize they need to get permission of the property owner in order to do that. And this all brings up, and if the Eversource proposal goes through here, to what extent would Eversource be building a bulkhead? Or I know they wouldn't be building the whole bulkhead, but they would be doing something on the property that might affect the building of the bulkhead.
Well, right now, Jeff, like I said, a lot of unanswered questions.
Yeah,
We have an application here in front of us. And again, how do we handle this application?
Well, one question is to table it until you get more an understanding about how these three different projects coordinate with each other.
Well, as Mr. Sonicson had indicated,
Well,
apparently the owner and the DOT are in communication now to discuss what their future plans are.
Just as a side to this, and the graphic that's in front of us now, the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection in March sent me a plan dated revised February 17th, 2021, which showed the DOT locating their barges directly in front of 68 Water Street. So that was the plan that the department that was the plan that the department filed with the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection with their application for the work in this area, which is nothing like what's shown on the screen right now.
They're revising their application, and it was expected to be revised, which they reviewed with both the Harbor Commission, I'm sorry to interrupt, and the Shellfish Commission last month. And it was expected that revised application would be submitted, either this week or perhaps even last week. But the revision reflects what Mr. McDonald has shown here.
Yeah.
That the area would not be used for barges to tie up, but for passenger vessels to tie up. But absent an agreement with the property owner to use the property owner's littoral rights, it seems that application would be flawed.
That's correct, and that's one of the reasons that, well, had the 2012 permit not lapsed, it's sort of a serendipity in a horrible sort of way here. They would have renewed their permit and continued to renew their permit and maintain their rights and their ability to be able to improve their waterfront. Right now, they don't have anything. And what I was directed to proceed to apply to obtain a structures dredging and fill permit for their waterfront, so that they had the ability, depending on what happened here, to be able to do these improvements. They negotiated with the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection throughout the 2000s and finally arrived at what everyone thought was a satisfactory use of the waterfront, and the permit's pending right now. So
What permit is pending?
a permit, a structures dredging and fill permit for the improvements to 68 Water Street's waterfront that are shown on the screen and that were described in the notice that was read at the beginning of the meeting.
Pending by DOT, or are you referring to your own application
I'm
that's pending?
referring to our application. The property owner
Yeah,
of 68 Water Street has filed an application with the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection for a permit, absent all of these other things that are proposed and being proposed on the site by other entities.
Mhm.
The thing that shocked me the most was that the Department of Transportation would file a permit with another state agency to do work on a property when they hadn't even discussed it with the property owner.
well, and I'm sorry to talk so much and I'll stop, but this is something, again, it goes back over 20 years that we've been involved with. But your application to file it with DEEP is awaiting the Harbor Commission to sign off on the pre-application form. So the commission hasn't done that yet because of these unanswered questions and conflicts.
That's already in the application. That's correct.
That's what.
Jeff, as far as my take on the whole thing is, it is a pre-application.
Yes.
Yes.
Every single item that you mentioned in terms of ambiguity and us not knowing what's going on, this is the property owner. They have the right to file. We know there's a myriad of underlining. Any approval that we do to move this forward under pre-application, not only are we reserving the rights as our normal nomenclature would be, but also we have to list all these items that happen to be very troubling to us, because we know we're going to have to look at this whole thing from several different other angles, and that all should be pointed out should we move this forward in pre-application.
Right, and one of the other comments that we had, with the understanding based on information from DOT that this bulkhead was not necessary for the walk bridge construction, was the objection to the state paying multiple millions of dollars to build this bulkhead for the benefit of a private property owner, instead of putting that money into a public project that might benefit the public in the harbor. So,
correct. All our understandings, and because we've had many conversations with DOT on this property as this plan has evolved, and my sense of it is it's still evolving.
Yeah.
Now, what my take on what Robert is saying is they're just looking to cure the lapse in the permit that they renewed on an annual basis over many years.
well, that's something else I don't understand, because my understanding has been when a permit expires, you can renew it, but not renew it indefinitely. In fact, we just went through this in another town where a town permit expired. It was renewed 3 years, and then the DEP said, no, the information now is too old. You have to apply for a whole new permit. So well, that's what the applicant is doing now anyway.
Yeah, that wasn't the case here because they found the fact that the Walk Bridge project had a potential impact on what they were doing. And so the department said, we understand, you can keep renewing your permit until we sort things out. Unfortunately, it expired and they said, your only choice now is to apply for another permit. And we applied for the exact permit that had been approved in 2012.
Well, what we're dealing with right now is the pre-application, which, the owners put an application in, and we have an option here to either allow the application to move forward with a variety of caveats that are attached as far as some of the unknown questions that we have that hopefully will get answered during the regular application procedure.
Well, then how do we deal, John, with the fact that it's still in the DOT's application?
Well, well.
Is that our concern?
That's
I mean,
not a
Steve needs to sort that out.
How should we sort? It's between the owner and DOT. The owner
correct. I mean,
the owner has put in an application. It's a pre-application that either we respond to that with regard to allowing them to move forward with their application, and with, again, the various questions that we have already discussed, and somewhere along the line prior to getting that application in full view, that they hopefully resolve those issues.
I think it's the property owner's right to pursue this permit, and I don't think that what other people or DOT is messing around with and hasn't, or Eversource, is really that much of our concern. I mean,
Well, it is our concern in terms of worrying about what's going to happen, because we know this is all, others are going to, DOT and Eversource are going to come before us because that's the way it's laid out. And we must point that out. We're not approving it. I would move it forward because I think we're obligated to, from the homeowner's benefit. If there's a conflict within deep because another application has been submitted, whether it was submitted properly or not, that's something for them to sort out.
correct.
But I think that we'll have a little time when we do our, if we do move it forward, to address the letter, what all our concerns are, that they're duly noted, that it would help them, because Robert, there's no intention of the day after tomorrow to start building, correct?
Absolutely not.
All right.
And as a sidebar, I've been in communication with Sue Jacobson, who's the person who's the supervisor of this section. And she's always asking me, what do you know? And I think that she would love to hear what the Harbor Commission's concerns are from your perspective too, because it will help her.
Well, big picture,
trying to sort things out.
We need to spell out those concerns, and this project is going to be evolving over time still, because they haven't locked in, and anyone, like Chris McDonald pointed out, locked in on any given property to do alternative stuff, and they may come back and go to condemnation route again. Who knows? That's all up in the air. But I think you're looking to cure, at least stay in the link or eventual something.
Right.
So,
Well, my thought is we should move ahead with this pre-application. I
agree. Well, that's what we'll put forward. If anyone would like to make a motion, but
I'll
then
make the motion.
we need a certain number of caveats that we were talking about that need to be addressed. But that's up to the owner, and it's up to the DOT to come to some sort of agreement.
but we need to be extremely emphatic of what all our concerns are, why it shouldn't go to an approved application moving forward.
No, we're not. We're approving the application. The application can move forward.
I understand that, but once it hits their desk, that besides our concerns, that isn't something that should be approved immediately until we address all the other
Right.
issues that are caveats to us.
So it would be no objection to it moving forward,
Right.
but that no decision should be, and to transmit the issues that we've talked about
Yeah.
today.
Correct. And our
no
recommendation is no decision should be made because of these other issues that are still
Right.
up in the air.
The two main issues is the involvement of the DOT and then the uncertainty of the well,
Eversource.
the Eversource
Eversource
issue,
location.
which was a sense of urgency right from the beginning that those transmission lines were to go there before the Walk Bridge project would even commence.
Right.
Right.
We saw drawings of that bulkhead built with those lines going kind of through it or under it, however you want to say.
Well, they would go
Long ago.
under it.
They would go very deep under it. They're not, they don't want to encumber anybody's property. They have to go under the federal channel by, a fair amount. So that's, 20, 25 feet down.
Yeah, but the bulkhead that
sea
we saw
level.
the drawings was relieved around where those conduits were going to be
Right.
placed.
All right. Well,
Yeah,
let's
but they'd be under it. It's just like they'd be under the visitor's dock. They'd be under any pilings for the visitor's dock.
Understood.
Right.
But we've
So-
seen that for years. But
But we has Eversource submitted anything that is in front of us?
No.
So that's complete speculation. We have a DOT application of some, I can never keep track of, Jeff, this is your, of what stage it is at. We have two conflicting applications at this time. I believe they have amended their application to include the vessel relocation that we were looking at. And their assumption is they have either, I think they must be assuming they have the ability to get the littoral rights of that property through condemnation or negotiation or whatever. So we have two conflicting applications.
well,
And the DOT,
But
the DOT is in front of theirs in line.
are they aligned with the harbor management plan? I mean,
Well, we're the ones who push
Property
them.
use,
We're the ones
right?
who push them to put the vessels at this location. And now we're going to negate their, and now we're acting on another thing that would negate their ability to do that. So we're pushing them in two different directions.
we're not pushing anybody anywhere, are we? I don't-
We pushed very hard to get it off now where the DOT and the vessel operators wanted to put the vessels and to put them here. The reason they're there is because we have pushed them very hard to put them there.
Yes, but I don't think it's our judgment to
well, wait,
not
guys.
to allow property to
That
move forward.
was before the applicant, the owner, decided to do anything there. The land was just laying fallow, and this was a temporary move to relocate those two vessels. That was a temporary move to put the two vessels south of the bridge, so that the it wouldn't be any encumbrance as working between the bridges. But that was certainly at our instigation. But the owner went ahead and put an application in. So that sort of so I have no problem of allowing this to move forward with again the various caveats that we had discussed. If someone would like to make a motion to that regard.
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second? Dennis seconds it. Motion made by Alan Kibbe.
All right.
All in favor of the motion to move the application forward with a long list of caveats?
We will indicate the major ones that we've already talked about, and we'll certainly bring this to the.
I mean, I'm going to object because I think we have already endorsed the conflicting application. We have endorsed that explicitly.
Have we seen that application?
That's what I had on the screen. It's what they've talked to us about a half a dozen times. And when they presented it to us, we have basically endorsed, we have endorsed that use of the land and endorsed that
I disagree.
alternative over the other alternative.
What documentation do we have of that, Chris?
I
Do we have
disagree, Chris. I think that plan that they have, the DOT, is still in flux. That plan has never been solidified.
But also, just Chris's point, the two projects don't cancel each other out, because they can still rebuild the bulkhead and still have the dock that goes into the. the
I'm
total
not talking
rights.
about the bulkhead part is dead. I mean, they're not
No,
going to
no,
do
but-
they're not
but
going to do the
this-
bulkhead. I'm talking about the
But
the vessel relocation part.
the 68 Water Street project to
Okay, that
rebuild the
bulkhead, yeah.
bulkhead.
Right.
Building the dock offshore of the property doesn't mean that the property owner can't rebuild the bulkhead. The issue is that the DOT is proposing something without the permission of the property owner. But that doesn't affect the property owner's ability to build a bulkhead.
Correct.
And the use of the temporary dock for the passenger boats would be temporary. It
Right.
wouldn't be a permanent.
No, it's correct. It's not permanent. It's, yeah.
But by moving this project forward, maybe this will help to get some resolution or at least put these issues on the table and get some resolution of you've got 3 different projects. And it's hard to believe.
Hopefully the DOT and the owner could come to some sort of an arrangement, but maybe some financial arrangement, if it's going to be mutually beneficial for both.
It's hard to believe that the Eversource hasn't discussed its plans with the property owner for the.
But
over the
our
last-
concern should be what are there any faults with this application as it stands on its own? We know about other things that might happen, but I don't see why we shouldn't allow the work to the process to proceed.
Right, and I think for the purpose of clearing up a violation that's been in place that was identified
Exactly.
22 years ago.
Exactly.
Well, and that's why I think we should have both owners at the next meeting to explain this to us, because I think, that would be my position. I would like to have, instead of.
Well, are you talking about land use?
Well, hold on, guys. There's a motion on the floor. The motion was being voted on. Let's continue with the voting. I'm gonna call for a hand raising for a vote. All in favor of the motion that was put forward?
Aye. Aye.
And objections? Chris, so duly noted. All on the call on the commission are in favor with one objection, Chris McDonald. And your argument has validity to it to a degree. We need to sort all of this out. And I think Deep has got more sorting to do than we do.
I have no objection to the thing on its own. I just think it's premature to make a decision with 2 conflicting applications in front of us.
No, we're not making a decision, Chris.
This is pre-application.
Okay.
Pre-application. Right. Okay.
So
moving forward. All right. So Mrs. Sonicson, we'll get a letter out to you based on our discussion, and it'll be hopefully self-evident, when we have it in writing.
And be prepared to be reading the Bible, because it should be a lengthy document.
Well, thank you very much. It's been a thrilling meeting.
Thank you for the history lesson. All right.
And there's no question about the fact that the property owner has been sort of hamstrung by this whole process for a long period of time, and he would love to have resolution moving forward. He really wants to improve his property. It's been sort of deteriorate, and look at the rest of the waterfront and look at this piece. I know it's been an eyesore for a long time, and he likes to keep his properties in good condition.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you, Rob.
Take care.
All right. So, moving forward, our next application is at 5 Decker Street in Norwalk. It's a COP, and it's by Thomas and Allison Robbins, who propose to reconfigure and shift the location of a currently authorized recreational dock. The dock will be shifted approximately 17 feet northward to align with an existing walkway on the shoreline. The structural changes to the dock will be to change the main float from a 8-foot by 20-foot configuration to a 6-foot by 22-foot configuration, with the addition of a 4.5 by 6-foot ramp support float. The ramp size will be similar to that originally permitted, which is a 3-foot by 36-foot, and the length of the fixed pier will be reduced from 78 to 76 feet, and the number of pilings in the tidal wetlands for the pier support will be reduced from 6 to 4. and the reconstruction will be done using small work vessels, barges, and cranes. So, and I've asked Mr. Bajek to review that project, and I think we have, I think we do have some diagrams of that. Let me see if we can have that up here. As Mr. Bajek, Jim?
Oh, yeah, thanks, John. Yeah, let me give you a little background first. Back in September of 2017, we received a permit from the from DEEP for the original dock that we're asking now to move the location. The owners just kind of sat on the permit because they had originally planned on creating some sort of a different access to the dock that we got permitted originally. But as they went through their site modifications, they decided to just leave the waterfront area the way it was, with concrete steps going down to the water, to a concrete landing. They decided to just, leave that alone. So then I hemmed and hawed quite a bit about, okay, how are we going to access the dock? Where we got it permitted. Is there a way to move it so our access way is more direct to the dock? And they also looked at the float size. They wanted it to be a little bit longer and still have a stable float. So we took a look at that and spoke with a local marine contractor and decided to change the configuration to the 6 by 22 foot main float, with the additional 4.5 by 5 foot other float section to add to the stability and also provide a means for the ramp to safely land on the float. So based on that, we developed the plans. We had conversations with the Army Corps and with Connecticut DEEP, and they both said, after some back and forth, that they didn't have any issues with it, that it would qualify under the COP application process and to go ahead and file. So that's pretty much where we are right now. We updated the natural diversity database information as part of this. The existing permit is still good until September of 2022. So I would assume that if all goes well with the COP application, that would have some kind of a condition that the existing permit is no longer valid and that the COP is the valid document at that point. So,
Jim, are you planning, so the entire dock, the current dock there is going to be completely dismantled? You're pulling the pilings and everything is.
No, it hasn't even been built. There's nothing there right now.
Oh, I thought okay. I'm sorry.
They decided not to build what was permitted.
Oh, okay.
And evaluate what's,
I got you. You just
what they really wanted to do.
Moving that original plan over 17 feet.
Jim, I know we did a site visit to this project, which was really a great thing. It was enlightening to us, the way it was laid out previously, to what you were proposing. And am I right in assuming that the way you've repositioned the dock now is based on our input too? Because it just made logical sense to follow the pathway of the steps going down.
Yeah.
And also, this was a big improvement because that whole area is a mud flat, and the previous dock probably just laid on the mud flats.
Well, it's almost the same situation. It's actually not a mud flat where the float is ending up. There's actually water at low tide where the float is. The pier goes out to just beyond the tidal wetlands that are there. And the tidal wetland area is pretty consistent all across the 80-foot of frontage that the Robins have. But you're correct. One of the advantages of shifting it, the position of the dock, is to take advantage of the access to the water front that's already there. There's also another advantage, probably not a huge advantage, but by shifting it 17 feet to the north, it puts it almost exactly equidistant between the south, the neighboring dock to the south and a neighboring dock to the north. So the way it was originally permitted, the Robins dock would be slightly closer to the dock to the south, although it would still be some distance away, but now it'd be right smack in the middle.
Is there any, Jeff, you have a?
And just, Jim, on your drawing 7 of 8, which is your proposed plan, I think we would recommend that before any approval that you would show the extended, I agree, by putting it more in the middle of the property, you're taking it, you're providing more distance to the, extended littoral property line, which would be to the benefit that we would see. But I think you got to show the extended property lines and the distance from your structure to those property lines. And then the other thing I think we might want to say in the comments, John, is that the Shellfish Commission, if they haven't looked at this already, would be looking at it next week. And we'd also anticipate that DEEP and the applicant would consider any comments that might be made by the Shellfish Commission.
That's correct.
And they also, the scale on those drawings, it's not a graphic scale, so you can't really figure out the dimensions. You've got a written scale on it. But that's the only comments I would have, John, that it needs to be consistent with what we've already done. The drawings have to show the extended littoral property lines and the distance to those lines.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And the other thing, Jim, that we often required, since the amount of work that you're going to be doing, going to be work vessels in the area, that you would work with the harbor master for location of those work vessels while you're in preparation of that dock.
I mean, that was the property lines. If you looked at it, we did it by eye.
Yeah.
It was obvious that there were issues with it, and this cures those issues. In my
Yes.
opinion.
But they should still show the extended
Yes.
lines, John, and the distances.
All right, we'll put that, actually, we'll put that in our comments and recommendations, Jim. So
Okay.
we can have a motion for this particular application.
Just one other thought on that is that 5 Decker Street is adjacent to it's a city-owned street end that Chris and I actually went and walked, and we want to be sure, I don't have that drawing in front of me, that we're not interfering with the public access at the end of Decker Street, that's all.
Well, that's interesting,
Was that?
because Decker Street, Alan, isn't shown on the applicant's drawings.
No.
Decker Street is a street that Chris and I
Yeah.
trod on a few weeks ago. It goes right down to the harbor, but it's a street end.
Pretty much it
public
ends
access.
before it gets to the shoreline. I
No.
think that's why it wasn't shown.
Jim, it does not. It is, the city right of way is the northern abutter of this property.
Oh, yeah,
But
the
it
right of
extends
way,
all the way
sure.
to the water.
Yeah.
It's grass there, everybody is using it, but it is the city right of way. The asphalt ends before the road, but the city right of way extends to the water's edge.
So maybe that should be shown on the drawing too, to give a complete picture of the
Okay.
property and the adjoining use.
Yeah,
Yeah, because that
would
street
help
end,
us
that
for other
Decker,
things.
that right of way.
Yeah, we shouldn't have any problem with that.
It used to be it used to be dirt, now it's grass. It's all been made into a nice lawn. And the property owner to the north, has plopped a flagpole in the middle of it with a nice little rock garden, which is, again, that's in the city right of way. So I think that we should be very careful at that location, that we aren't interfering with any gentrification or adverse possession issues that could come
Yeah.
forward for that property.
That's a good point, Alan. Thank you.
Okay,
With those comments made, as I said, we will certainly clarify all those issues, in our letter. And if we can have a recommendation for this particular application, that
who
it is
wants to move it?
consistent, it's consistent with the harbor management plan.
Who wants to move that? Anybody?
I'll make the motion for it to proceed.
All right, Chris McDonald, a second.
All right.
Who's the second? Laurie Jones.
All right, thank you.
All in favor, please?
Right.
Raise your hand.
Aye.
Okay, and it looks unanimous to me.
Unanimous? Okay. So we will get, Jim, we'll get our letter. We'll get our letter out to you within the week or so. Again, with the comments that we made to talk about with regard to littoral rights, with regard to the positioning of the dock, with regard to the nearness of the dock to the property owners. And again, we'll get a letter out to you.
Okay, just to make sure that I fully understand what distance point you would like us to show. Are you talking about the floating dock? To show that distance to the extended property lines?
Yeah, the structure that's closest to those property lines, the distance from the structure that's closest to the line, both to the north and to the south. So I'm looking at the,
So you're talking about the pier or the float?
It should be whatever part of the structure is closest to the property line, which in this case is the float of the pile.
it's the float and the pile. Yeah, there's a pile on both the north side and the south side.
Yep. Okay.
And,
All right. So
and-
it'd be to each pile on the north and south sides of the float.
yes, and the Decker Street right of way.
Right away.
Right, which is the northern property line for the Robins.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
So how extensive is that? I mean, I haven't seen it down there, but how much of a right of way does the city have that on that property prior to the dock?
What do you think, Chris?
I don't know whether it's a 20 or 20, probably a 25-foot right away. I'm not sure.
That's what I would guess is 20 or 25 feet of what used to be a dirt road is now a lawn.
Right.
And it's got a flagpole in the middle of it at the western end on the water on the north side of the road.
Yeah, Jim, if you can, sort of indicate that again, as far as the city's, property rights, as far as in juxtaposition of the owners placing a dock out in that area.
Okay.
Redness and Mead prepared the survey. They'll know how to properly show the right of way.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Okay.
This won't be a problem.
All right. Great.
Thank
All
you,
right, Jim. Thank you very much, Jim.
Well, thanks, Jim.
Okay,
All right.
take care.
Our third application is at 14 Shorehaven Road. Again, it's a pre-application. It's by Shorehaven Oxtail LLC. And they propose to construct a 4-foot by 65-foot piling supported timber pier with a 42 inch by 8-foot removable aluminum steps. They have planned, although on the original plans, they don't show in conjunction with the dock itself, but they plan to put a boat elevator and a power lift. It's a 3 by 30-foot aluminum ramp and an 8-foot by 20-foot piling anchored timber floating dock for a private recreational vessel. And I think Mr. Hiltz, is here. Yes, John Hiltz is here to discuss that project.
For the record, this is John Hiltz for the applicant at 14 Shorehaven Road, 14 Shorehaven Oxtails. And you pretty much described the proposed project. It basically, one of the properties over there that currently doesn't have a pier. They're kind of just infilling, as everybody purchases these properties and does their various improvements, I guess you could call them. So in this case, yes, the gentleman is basically proposing a pier. There's an existing pre-1939 seawall there. There's stone revetment, a boulder revetment waterward of the seawall. There's no steps or access way from the upland to the the coarse sand beach. So that's why we're proposing the removable aluminum steps off the dock. The boat lifts themselves, the PWC lift and the boat elevator, those are basically anticipating kind of a maximum build out, if you will. The gentleman's not sure that he's actually going to use either of those. He may just leave the boat at Marina, Cove Marina or something like that. But he didn't want to forego including them in the application in the event that he decides to, berth the boat at the pier, and also the potential for a jet ski or something like that on the adjacent the other side, the opposite side of the pier. Beyond that, ramp is pretty much standard issue for this area. The floating dock, to deal with the basically the size and the anticipated weather and wave related events. What we are doing is we're putting 4 timber anchor pilings on the landward side of the floating dock, 2 vertical and 2 battered. The intention being there is to minimize permanent waterward structural encroachment into the waterway. Obviously the ramp and the floating dock will need to be removed in the off season, just to secure that. So that's basically it. The float will include float skids to maintain an 18-inch clearance beneath the floating dock. It's hard sand there. You can walk out, a couple hundred feet actually and not sink in much at all. So there's that. And I do have a call out on the proposed plan view, just indicating that we're about 625 feet away from town bed 1C. We do understand that, of course, this is a recreational shell fishing area, so we're aware of that.
Is he now? Understand about the power lift. Now he's planning to put the power lift in, but he might not use it, or will use it, or
he might not even install it. It's simply these permits are generally valid for 5 years, and again, he doesn't want to go back and forth with the DEP unnecessarily. So that's why he said, include the PWC lift as well, just simply because if he does opt to build them, he wants to be able to build them under this permit application as opposed to a separate one.
So will the vessel be permanently located at the dock or
No, there's not enough water for that. The dock would be used pretty much for, occasional access. I think the intention of the dock really is more small, watercraft uses, stand-up paddle boards, kayaks, things of that nature.
All right. Does any commissioners have any questions on that application? I know, Jeff?
I say, interesting. So the Shellfish Commission would consider this at its meeting next week.
Right.
It's interesting, in part, our recommendations help to implement what the Shellfish Commission comes up with, because our recommendations are relative to the harbor management plan.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess the way the process goes, it seems that the Harbor Commission gets the applications first, and then the comment has to be, we recommend that DEEP and the applicant address any comments that are made by the Shellfish Commission.
We've done that before.
Yeah,
That's because we work on them too fast.
yeah.
We put them on our agenda too fast. That's why it should go the other way
It should
around.
go the other way. Yeah.
I believe Commissioner Bartush is actually, listening in, so we might want to be careful.
Well, no, just that in this area, he's had comments before, that being shellfish beds there, and
Well, you're planning on removing this dock again in winter months, and
Right, exactly. I mean, it's not, I think most of the docks over there get removed, every winter. So, this is no exception.
okay. Well, again, we certainly will await Shellfish Commission's remarks and comments. But does
Well, we could say they had no objection to it moving forward.
right? Yeah.
But he's reserved the right to provide additional comments, including
That's
comments that may be based on what the Shellfish Commission may say.
right, and that'll certainly be our comments.
Because if the Shellfish Commission found that, and I don't know that this would, of course, there's no indication, would have an application would have an unacceptable adverse impact on shellfish resources, that would affect our recommendation.
Well, this is a pre-application and
Yeah.
we'd like to make
All
a
right.
motion, please.
So who would like to move this forward in pre-application?
Right, Alan?
Yes,
Alan Kibbe, and who, second,
All right.
Jeff Mangles.
Okay.
All right, subject to the comments and future comments by Shellfish.
Steve, you have any comments?
No, that's fair. Thanks. I just propose that we might like to see it. That's all.
Well, you were sent a copy. You were sent a copy?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
No, they're site visits. They do site visits.
Thank you, John. I got your point.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So we have all those in favor? Did we take it? All right. Aye. Do we have unanimous?
Yeah.
All right. All right. Moving forward. Okay. Our last, thank you very much, guys. Thank you very much.
Good
John.
night.
Our last item on the application review is the proposed recommendations to the amendment for the housing workforce development. I sent everybody a copy. I was wondering if anybody had any additional comments on that, or I have it here if you want to read it. It was a letter that I sent out to all the commissioners to review. If anyone had any additional comments, I didn't hear anything back from you.
Well, I mean, big picture, obviously, we have to be concerned about marine use
That's correct.
and continuation of it, and we just have to express that. And we always use the plan as a reference. We should continue to do that in our comments back to them.
Well, those are in there. If you want me to, I can review that again if you'd like.
Yeah.
The proposed recommendations I have here. We have the suggested recommendations from the zoning people will put in their text amendment on this workforce regulations. That we have the North Harbor Management Commission is concerned about the potential adverse impact of stormwater from impervious areas draining into the harbor. The plan calls for protection and improvement of water quality of the harbor and supports appropriate best management practice to avoid otherwise mitigate non-point source pollution. This deals primarily with the macadam, any building of parking spaces and use of that property that would affect water, the water in and on, contiguous to North Harbor. And as the North Harbor supports implementation of runoff reduction and low impact development practices pursuant to the city's stormwater management recommendations. And again, what we have we also made this recommendation when we talked about the, I think it was the Wall Street, East Wall Street project, Wall Street project. If the proposal for the multi-development affects property within the coastal boundary and may affect property on, in, or contiguous to Norwalk Harbor management area, it should be referred to the zoning commission, referred by the zoning commission to the Norwalk Harbor Management Commission for review. The recommendations of this review are specified in section 22A 113 P of the Connecticut General Statutes and the Norwalk Harbor Management Plan. Pursuant to the general statutes and the plan, again, this will be in our recommendation, a 2/3 vote of all members of the zoning commission is needed to approve a proposal that has not received a favorable recommendation from the Harbor Management Commission. Proposed workforce housing developments with impervious surface must provide net benefit to drainage conditions by limiting building and parking coverage to about 70% of the proposed property development. If the parking area or impervious surface is within 100 to 500 feet of the ordinary high water mark, the city should issue a permit that requires mitigation plans approved by the Harbor Management Commission and the DEP and implement by the property owner. The mitigation plan should include enforceable obligations of the property owner to establish and maintain measures that the city and its Harbor Management Commission and Shellfish Commission determine adequate to offset the impacts of the impervious surface of water quality near or onshore aquatic habitat, in particular shellfish resources, upland wildlife habitat, and natural scenic beauty. That's pretty much what we had indicated in the last, but this would be proposed for this workforce regulation amendment. Any,
Okay, you need a vote on that, John, or?
I think we do. All right, what I'll
I'll
do,
make the motion.
those 4 points will be sent over to Michelle. They've asked for a comment, and it was last month. This time we decided that we'd wanted to have a review of that. I sent out each one of the commissioners the review. If you, as I said, if you had any additional comments, if not, we can vote on this and move forward with this.
I'll second the motion.
All right, all is in favor? Moving forward, aye. Any opposed? Okay. And I think that is all the items that we have on our agenda.
Okay, moving forward. Chairman's report. Not really much going on other than a bunch of emails going back and forth. Still waiting for Eversource, still waiting for DOT, still waiting for a lot of other issues to come before us. Is Harbor Master Scully on the call? I don't see him registered here. Any representation from Harbor Police?
No.
Seeing none. Jeff, do you have any other updates that we need to be brought forward?
No, regarding the Superior Court decision, we're in the process of scheduling another meeting with representatives of harbor management commissions throughout the state. And several other commissions have approved motions similar to what the Norwalk Commission did in terms of supporting new legislation or legislative amendments that would clarify the longstanding authorities of harbor management commissions. So that's still in the works, John.
Okay, great.
And the appeal by the town of Greenwich is proceeding.
Okay, cool. All right, now Shellfish, Stephen?
Hey, thanks, John. Just quick news from us. About 2 or 3 years ago, the Shellfish Commission submitted to the Bureau of Aquaculture a hierarchy, a list of areas for shellfish restoration. And our holy grail was the area south of Veterans Park. And there is news on that front. The state is now going out to survey them and to make their own prioritized list. The site visit for Vets Park is next Monday, the 1st at 11:30 for all those that are interested.
That's more Memorial Day.
After Memorial Day, Tuesday after Memorial.
A week from this Monday, or?
It's the 1st. That is
That's a
Monday.
Tuesday.
Tuesday, sorry, Tuesday. First business day of the week. Permits are on sale at Fisherman's World. We're open for business. Low tide is 8:30 on Saturday morning. Eat Norwalk shellfish, and I yield back, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mooring and harbor safety, Dennis?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the renewal applications are continuing and the committee continues to monitor and address any issues and concerns. We have 46 approved applications and 55 renewals under review. I may have mentioned in previous reports that we received the managed field's first payment, and we will contact each managed field requesting the balance and the mooring field inventory for this season. We will contact the tackle inspectors and review and discuss any issues and concerns they may have. I've been actually talking to them all along, but we'll give them a sort of a formal way to give me their concerns. Under harbor safety, the committee is not aware of any situations or issues regarding harbor safety at this time. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Finance, Alan.
Yeah, we've received, as Dennis said, we have a lot of revenue coming in from moorings. We're up to year-to-date $8,200 of mooring fees paid as of today. Related to that, our cost for given our online mooring service $550 so far year-to-date. Other than Harbor Master Scully's salary, we've really had no other transactions. We have $10,500 on hand with the city at this point. And that's
Thank you.
report. Thank you.
While you're up, why don't you handle newsletter and website?
No report.
Okay, thank you. Water quality, Joe?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had a discussion on Ms. Linnell Jones's letter to us. And Mr. Malik said that they had investigated the jurisdiction regarding the stormwater discharge pipe on Wilson's Point, and it is unregulated. He suggested that the committee consider presenting an educational program for the area residents. And we had more discussion after that. Also, we had later on in the meeting, Dick Harris pointed out that the mitten crab is starting, they're getting more and more mitten crabs on board the shellfish boats. Now that's up off of the Housatonic. It hasn't moved down into this area, but this is a freshwater crab that can get into the harbors and then work their way upstream. And we don't know how devastating they could be when they get into a place like the Norwalk or the Silver Mine River.
They eat the shellfish,
They eat anything that they can eat.
including
Now,
themselves.
Yeah, they can't open up the shellfish, but they could grab larvae and they could eat the young shellfish.
Not a good thing.
And that's it.
No.
Thank you, Joe.
Joe, is there any recommendation to do anything with those
Kill them,
if you kill them?
kill them.
Okay, no problem. That's all I wanted to know.
How do you do that?
There's no bounty on them. And I know for a fact that Deep isn't thrilled about the fact that this is another thing to try and control. Well, hopefully the fish in our area will decide they want to eat them. If you remember when the Asian shore crab came into Island Sound back in the 90s, fish were not eating them. And now they're a favorite bait for blackfish. So
Right.
it's something that it takes a learning process for the fish. And the only thing that I would be concerned about is most native fish stocks in the rivers here have learned to identify crayfish, not crabs. So it could be a more complex learning for them to decide to go after the crabs. So it's going to be interesting. Some of the crabs that Dick's caught have been gravid, and they can have a few thousand eggs every time you have a gravid female. So you could look at, and with no predators to date here in this area, you could look at a population explosion.
Are they edible? I mean, do they have any good recipes?
I honestly don't know. I know with the Asian short crab, there was an Asian chef in New Haven that figured out how to make poppers out of them. And they actually, I've had them, it's not bad. Obviously you got to catch a lot of them, but with people between the blackfish trying to get them and us trying to get them for bait and chefs picking them up for poppers, it's helped reduce the population. They aren't near what they used to be at Calf Pasture Beach.
What's the size of these crabs, Joe?
You know how big the Asian shore crabs are, John?
No.
You're talking about maybe anywhere from a ½ inch to 2 to 3 inches.
Oh, so we're talking something like a fiddler, the size of a fiddler crab.
Yeah, they're not, so far they're not big. I'm not sure how big they can get, but the ones they're catching right now are not that big.
Can you break the shell with your teeth?
I've never tried, John.
Okay.
So in a future meeting, perhaps the Harbor Management Commission should declare these a delicacy and see if we can get some.
Right.
Yeah.
Have a crab boil.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
Joe,
I
this sounds
suppose
like
they
this
don't
sounds
get
like
down
a great summer project to see if you can educate the fish and eating them. You know?
Well, talk about summer projects, John. I'm going to take you back 30 years.
Yeah.
One of the things that we started discussing was storm drains. And it's been pretty evident that in certain locations, and especially with certain storms that we've had and a lot of construction on the water, people may have put storm drains in that we don't know about.
Well, we've documented a lot of the storm drains, Joe. You remember that?
Well, we did back in the early 90s.
Mhm.
And remember the first interns we had, Chris and Chris, walked the shoreline,
Mhm.
and
Chris Park.
they documented every storm drain that they could find.
Right.
And there were almost 200 undocumented storm drains. Well, it's been 30 years, and something we may want to have on the horizon is the possibility of having somebody, the interns, doing those walks again and seeing if there has been changes.
Okay.
Well-
Is that it, Joe?
That's it.
All right, we're at public comment, and I know Mitch wants to weigh in and say hi, and welcome, Mitch. You're on mute, so unmute yourself, or if Michelle can unmute him. Okay, there you go, Mitch. Welcome. You're not, we cannot hear you. You're off of mute, but you need to turn your volume up on the computer. Not yet. Can the stenographer read lips and maybe it can repeat what Mitch wants to say? Mitch, you need to get the audio straightened out somehow. Could it be the volume on your computer, or?
It's probably your mic setting, Mitch. Don't know if you can access that quickly or not.
Lori, do we have a phone number where you can call in by phone? I mean,
Yeah.
Michelle?
Yes, we have a phone number.
Mitch, you could stay on the computer as far as the video portion of it, but Lori's sending you a call-in number, or you may have it on the invite that you have, and you do that mobily.
You just call in by phone.
So he calls in, so
He
wait.
calls in, yes.
Okay, all right, let me see if I can get that to him.
He may have it in his invite.
Yeah.
Looks like he's looking at something there. Could be dialing. There you go.
Mitch, can you hear us? Yes, okay.
Okay.
Mitch, are you dialing it? Oh, there you go. So if you can look for the dial-in, Michelle, and give him access.
Yeah, it's gonna be on his invite, but I will try and make it clearer. I'll send him an email and see if I can send him it that way.
It looks like he had his phone in his hand. so
He
may have been
is
doing it.
calling.
Yeah, he is calling.
Yeah, there you go. Technology.
Does he have the code ID number?
Yeah.
He does. Just his fingers aren't as nimble as they could be. How about those Yankees, huh?
I'll help take more pressure off of them.
Steve, what's the cost now for clam permit?
$17 for a resident, yeah.
17, thank you. And is there going to be a guest?
$16.99 for you.
How much?
Thank you.
Plus 10 cents per clam dug up.
Fantastic. I don't mind at all. Last year I didn't go clamming at all and I got a permit. So
Thank you for the donation.
you're
So I
welcome.
think we should advertise a permit for midden crabs for, $5,000 and say the permits are barely available and the last ones are going on sale.
Dick Harris has set traps, but evidently the traps are very difficult to find here post-pandemic.
People are not making them.
That's correct.
Traps as in
Crab traps.
crab
with-
traps?
With a fine enough mesh.
Oh, right, okay. I didn't know you could use those type of traps.
Mhm.
So what is your
It
issue?
looks like he's saying the line's not working. It's, I don't know. I can't-
Broken, you said? Oh,
Yeah, I don't know.
John,
Yeah,
while
he's
he's
done.
working on that, Steve sent me a photograph while I was at the gun club shooting, and I couldn't see it well, but it was
This is unmuted.
Oh, he needs to be unmuted, Michelle.
Yeah, he is unmuted.
All right, what's the phone number you called in on? Write that out. Because he's called in now. His audio is going to be on a call in, but I don't see
Okay.
him.
But we
Maybe
don't
the-
see him in
There
the
it is.
picture.
It's
Number-
917. You got to unmute him. It's a 917 number. See it?
Yeah,
We're going to unmute you. We're going to unmute you now.
hang
Okay,
on, Mitch.
There it
Good
is.
to
There you
go,
go.
Mitch.
How's that?
Hey!
Great. You just, our normal allowance is 3 minutes. Sometimes when we're generous, it's 5 minutes. You've already wasted 9 minutes and 30 seconds. So I'm gonna give you 30 seconds to
Well,
come to your point.
I'll go real quick, or as quickly as I can read. Dear Commissioners, I'm Mitch Pillay, President of the Wilson Point Property Owners Association. I come before you to go on the record regarding the allegations, innuendo, and suppositions made by one of our residents, Linnell Jones. I will only respond to the Wilson Point issues. As I understand, the Norwalk Yacht Club will be addressing you separately. Wilson Point is one of Norwalk's many private homeowners associations managed by an all-volunteer group of residents. We are fortunate to be a waterfront community and have a long tradition of a resident-led cleanup of the 5-acre estuary we own along Route 136. This year, as we do almost annually, many of our residents removed tons of garbage and debris. Ms. Jones did not attend and has rarely attended in the past. This, by the way, is the same estuary that was restored in 2006 by Save the Sound. We are equally proud of our bald eagles, red-tailed hawks, egrets, and many osprey. Our roads and stormwater management systems are privately owned and maintained. Accordingly, and as you are now well aware, we do not fall under the same regulatory requirements of a municipality for stormwater management. This is something we initially learned after inquiries were made back in 2016. In 2016, we announced to the community that we would be installing drainage to connect to an existing drain to remedy a dangerous situation. One drain. We also told the community that we would call the city of Norwalk first. We did, and were told by Maritza Diaz from Norwalk Department of Public Works that a permit was not required. Ms. Jones claims that there's no record, yet she is in possession of an email from Maritza Jones confirming such conversations. Once the project commenced, we understand Ms. Jones called the health department to stop the project. That day, we spoke to the health department who stopped our work. Ms. Jones could have raised her issues prior to commencement of the project. The health department told us they had called individuals at DEEP, and we were told we could proceed. Seemingly upset that we were not caught in the act, Ms. Jones has been contacting government agencies for the last 4 years. Those agencies have confirmed no permits were required. They are the Department of Public Works, Norwalk Planning and Zoning, the Mayor's Water Quality Committee, the Health Department, the Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection. We have spent 4.5 years answering questions on a project pre-cleared by the city. We have had enough. What we learned over the 4 years ago was confirmed again that permits were not required. Ms. Jones' new tactic is suppositions and character assassinations, something we don't think you should tolerate. We surely do not. Accordingly, we take any mischaracterizations of our association and her personal attacks very seriously. Nowhere in Ms. Jones' testimony, as you have referred to in emails, does she factually identify any known point source pollution that has occurred within the past 10 years. Just suppositions that a septic field regulated by the Board of Health and not this commission could have an issue, although no septic failure has actually occurred. In one correspondence, she even alleges that boaters are dumping sewage 2 miles off the coastline with no proof. The mayor's water quality committee has issued concerns about acting on baseless accusations. Yes, we all can agree that lawn and garden products available for residential use may contain chemicals that should not find its way into Long Island Sound. Neither should aviary and deer and animal fecal matter, as it may contain E. coli. Unfortunately, these are issues that affect every storm drain in the city of Norwalk that is not tied into the Blackwater system. Are Wilson Point's birds and deer so special that they need to be regulated too? If yes, please help us cull our deer herd, as my landscaping could use a break. Please note that I personally send out reminders to pick up after your dog for years. Not as Ms. Jones maintains, it's because it's the law. And quite honestly, it's a pet peeve of mine. How often does the city of Norwalk do the same with all of our city residents? The biggest laugh I got was when I realized that Linnell's septic system on her own home sits immediately uphill and within a couple of feet of mapped wetland and was within a few hundred feet of Long Island Sound. Will you be investigating this too? The allegations of misconduct in doing work without permits is the latest in an approximately 6-year journey I've had with Linnell. My relationship with her soured when I wouldn't take her side in a budding neighbor dispute, and she accused me of ethical issues, even though we forced a neighbor to take down a fence she objected to. Things got so bad that some of our board members would not attend board meetings without us having an armed, off-duty Norwalk Police Department service officer present at our meetings, as a behavior it concerned fellow board members. The city has records of this, as well as other concerns we've raised over the years. Now, let's get on to the facts on the presentation made. The inaccuracies made by Linnell Jones' presentation and her testimony to the Shellfish Commission dated May 6, 2021 include, on page 1, Linnell Jones suggests she's a member of the Wilson Point Beach, Inc. Wilson Point Beach, Inc. is a homeowners association by deed covenant, which Linnell Jones is not signed and therefore is not permitted to use Wilson Point Beach facilities. Page 2, item 1. Wilson Point Property Owners Association has not undertaken any serious construction of a drainage system along Nathan Hale Drive. I'll get more into detail in a moment. Page 3, Wilson Point Beach is inaccurate. There's no such thing as Wilson Point Beach Club. There is a Wilson Point Beach Incorporated, which happens to be a homeowners association, which Mrs. Jones refuses to join. Almost all the residents of Wilson Point have. When Ms. Jones made the false statements in the April 28th, 2021 Harbor Management Commission meeting that her boat access was taken away, this, by the way, is not true. She said she could only have access by belonging to a club. Also not true. She said she could have had access, she can have the additional boat access if she simply paid the same association assessments almost all of her neighbors pay. Wilson Point Beach, Inc. is not a club. Page 4, Nathan Hale Drainage Project's estimated locations. There's multiple errors on this sheet. The scopes of work are greatly exaggerated. On page 6, the Jones Project, very misleading. No work was performed at or abutting Laurie Jones's property. In fact, all of the work was done adjacent to 8 Point Road, which is a residence that was owned by Linnell Jones and her husband from 1992 to 2000. The pictorial on page 4 erroneously shows work running several hundred feet parallel to Nathan Hale and then running to Long Island Sound. The actual drainage work was limited to replacing 15 feet of pipe that was rotted, 6-inch CMP that joined two pre-existing catch basins that were on opposite sides of the road. This is clearly shown in the upper left-hand corner photo on page 6. It's labeled change pipe. Additionally, one catch basin was repaired. New tops and grates were installed at other catch basin locations. The balance of the piping shown in purple that runs parallel to the road was never touched. The purple line running from the road to the sound doesn't exist. The balance of the photos showing road resurfacing work that was done was not related to any drainage issues. Page 7, the 2014 Erdman project. This is a useless pipe installed by a resident to allow tidal surge, like a Sandy or Irene event, to drain quicker. In reality, the pipes are blocked off on one end, and the two pipes, the photo that's shown as well as on the sound side, sit at an elevation that's about a foot higher than the catch basin that's located just a few feet away. So anything that happens in that area is draining through the existing catch basin. Page 7, 2016 Draper project. There's no connection to any piping from 14 Point Road. Mr. Draper asked and was granted permission after we spoke to the Department of Public Works to install a yard drain and connect it to our stormwater system. Page 8, 2016 Timmerman project. This was the installation of a new catch basin at the hairpin turn on the south end of Nathan Hale Drive and piped to the nearest existing catch basin. The outflow piping from that catch basin to the next and the piping from the last catch basin to Long Island Sound were not touched. The new catch basin also is at a higher road elevation than the next catch basin downstream along Nathan Hale. Water in this area would travel down the road to the existing catch basin. However, in freezing weather, the shallow pitch of Nathan Hale Road, which is only about 18 inches and 450 feet, will cause freezing at the base of Point Road, base of Nathan Hale, which is, as I said, a steep hairpin turn. As you're now aware, this work was all discussed with the Department of Public Works. Ms. Diaz indicated DPW is not an authority having jurisdiction. It is not regulated by MS4. Mr. Closter, who at the time conferred with Connecticut TEEP, no permits were required, and is not a new discharge pipe into Long Island Sound. Work proceeded accordingly, despite Ms. Jones' attempts to waste everyone's time by trying to catch volunteers in wrongdoing. On page 10, Ms. Jones made a Freedom of Information Act request. The association had already complied with sending her all the information requested, and we also disputed if WAPOA, as a homeowners association, is subject to FOIL. The Connecticut FOIC Commission agreed with our position, but Ms. Jones disagreed with their position and filed an appeal. We await their final decision. In her presentation, Ms. Jones tried to further create suspicion by stating that Seaman Construction didn't charge appropriate sales tax for its work. Whether Ms. Jones is now trying to disparage Seaman Construction or the association is not clear. What is clear is that Ms. Jones didn't take the time to check what work is subject to sales tax. Does Ms. Jones now want the association to pay sales tax when it is not required? We asked that the city inform Ms. Jones about the seriousness of making false statements to government agencies and ask that any and all remedies are pursued in this regard. This is especially serious when the testimony was given as a result of an invitation from the Shellfish Commission. I have not even begun to address the inaccuracies of Ms. Jones' statements during her April 28th Norwalk Harbor Management Commission meeting, which you clearly use as a basis to invite Ms. Jones to testify before the Shellfish Commission. We separately asked Mr. Romano, as chair of this committee, to address the seriousness of false statements made to this commission. We also became aware of statements made to you as part of her presentation, as well as emails sent by Ms. Jones to various commissions and committees that revolve around Wilson Point's governance. And we will not respond further as they have nothing to do with the issues before you. Nor will I respond to the various character assassinations that was sent by Ms. Jones via email, as they will potentially be a part of our future litigation. These alone should, in our view, have caused you to be suspicious of Ms. Jones' goals. In conclusion, Wilson Point is a well-run, all-volunteer homeowners association. We installed a drain 4.5 years ago that did not fall under any known regulatory authority. A year and a half ago, we replaced some deteriorated roads and repaired existing catch basins adjacent to same. In both instances, we discussed the work with the city in advance. We were advised no approvals and accordingly no plans were required. For 4.5 years, we've gone from one city agency to another only to hear that permits were not required. We heard this again tonight from Mr. Schneiderlin. I've watched members of one commission or this city's administration attend one meeting between Shellfish, Water Quality, and Harbor, acknowledge no permits were required, and then stay silent at the next meeting discussing the same issue. I've watched members of one commission after hearing all of this, then invite Ms. Jones to present to their commission, not have it on their agenda, and not acknowledge my request to respond in public session. We are still waiting for the Wilson Point Property Owners Association records request to the Shellfish Commission be fulfilled. This is not right. It's up to you to put an end to this 4.5-year-old saga in which the same questions are asked and answered, and then asked again in a different format and form. Wilson Point welcomes any citywide or regional approach to stormwater management. There are many issues brought up by Ms. Jones that apply to all coastal areas and are typical of any place with stormwater, lawns, septic system, deer, dogs, and birds. Accordingly, Wilson Point does not support any search without due process or specificity, water testing without actual cause, water testing without established criteria, water testing without establishing a chain of custody, or allowing us to have simultaneous independent testing. We started a project 4.5 years ago, got clearance from you, the city of Norwalk, and now, over 4.5 years later, we are still being dragged in front of committee after committee. This is no way for you to treat your fellow volunteer residents. This sideshow needs to end tonight. Gentlemen, I want to thank you for your time.
Let me remark a little bit, Mitch, and we've had several conference calls with Laurie Jones and other people on your board, and we made it perfectly clear that we have no witch hunt going on. We took Linnell Jones's presentation at face value. It was very professionally done. It was done with conciseness. You guys have issues with the facts, which is fine. We didn't take and weight anything that she said to malign any one of your people in your group, except that there were a couple of things that were factual, or one thing at least was the yacht club issue of the way that they clean their boats, and that's what drew the attention of Shellfish. Now,
yeah, John, by the way, if I may, 1 second.
For you to say that we have to do the whole city of Norwalk to do Wilson Point is very inaccurate, because over the years with the internships that we've supported financially, we have looked at each and every almost outlet, and we found, I think, over the years, 80 instances where there were issues, and we were responsible for pushing the issue and the city remediating those problems where the city was responsible, and or
John,
the things that were done. So we have no issues with Wilson Point. We're not bringing up any of the, whether it was permitted or not, or legally done or not. That's not under our purview, and we haven't said anything to the negative about your board or the way you're conducting your business.
So John, a couple of things, right? The vote that was taken at the Shellfish Commission was taken based upon, to come in and test our waters, was taken solely based upon her testimony, even though it's known by all the various departments that everything that was done appropriately and within our permitted, did not require permits. I don't want to speak for the Norwalk Yacht Club, but I do know factually that the photos that she showed of cleaning boats were 2008 photos. They're not recent. You'll hear directly from them on that. They were from 2008.
We're not asking.
Okay.
We're not asking them to relate to anything to us. I think this is in Shellfish's.
Well, Shellfish. The reason why I'm addressing it in the tone I am, right, is because the vote that was taken by Shellfish was to do water testing together with the Harbor Management Commission and the Mayor's Water Quality Committee. So it was the Shellfish Commission that joined all three together as one entity doing the water testing. Right? I mean, that's just public record.
Well, John, can I just?
Yeah, absolutely, John. Jump in.
We've tested outlets around the city for a number of years. It has nothing to do with permits. We're not interested in permit. If there's an issue, if there's a perceived issue, for example, there was an issue up on Moody's Lane quite some time ago, where we were getting a high coliform count coming down, and we found that Stu Leonard's was a problem because there was some meat products being washed off. It was going to the storm drains, and we found this coming down to Norwalk Harbor. We immediately addressed that issue, and that was corrected. There was also a storm drain that down Calf Pasture Beach that came from the concession center. That was all of a sudden we're getting a very high coliform count coming out into the harbor. Whether it was permitted or we're not interested in the permit, we were just interested in the quality of the water. If there's an issue as far as the water quality with regard to heavy metals or anything else, I think that would be of our concern. Whether we would do the testing is how would the testing would be done. But if there's an issue there that needs to be looked at, I don't think that it would be in our purview to sort of examine that. Not interested in who's culprit or not.
Here's basically, I just want to cut to the chase.
Yeah.
I'm dealing with an individual who has a bone to pick with the association. Came up with a really well done slide presentation of a whole bunch of suppositions that something could be out there. It's all baloney. It's all baloney. I've had enough. I'm done. It's a private neighborhood. It's a private storm system. I can't live.
But it discharges into public waters.
See, listen. Tell me about a specific, and maybe Joe, you could chime in here and tell me if I'm wrong. Deep cannot investigate a discharge without a specific instance, right? So if there's, and I'll use this as an example, if there is a septic system, and I don't know of any septic system that has failed in Wilson Point, if there's a septic system that fails, okay, where there is a discharge, I'd be the first one to call and say, come on in and check. That hasn't happened.
But
all you have is a lot of smoke and mirrors. Now, if you want to act on smoke and mirrors, we'll be having more discussions.
No.
That's it.
Mitch.
We have tested hundreds of storm drains through our water quality interns, and without finding any issues. It was just a matter of checking those storm drains if there was a potential problem or not. Not saying who's culprit or not, but is there a potential problem? We've done that over the years. Nothing wrong with that. And I'm not saying that we have to go and look at the storm drains coming out of Wilson Point. If there's an issue there, I would have no problem testing it. But like you said, if you know of no water quality issue that goes into Norwalk Harbor, our concern is what goes into Nauk Harbor. That's all.
Yeah, and you know what? If
Mitch,
there was, I want to be really clear. If there was a citywide program, we're the first ones to sign on to it. For you folks to be acting based upon supposition, and Steve, you saw the emails that she sent to you, with the character assassinations. Okay? If you want to act based upon somebody who's writing emails like that, be my guest. But I'm not going to stand for it.
Mitch, you asked for my opinion here. There has been in the past, and I'm sure there's going to continue to be citywide programs for testing. This is not something that's new for your area. This is something that has been going on. Not only do we test, we have interns that conduct that. We also have the Department of Aquaculture that does it. They not only test the water, but they will test the shellfish stock. And there's a good way of looking at this. If they come up with nothing, then they have proven you correct, and the person making allegations incorrect. The other side of that is, if they come up with something, what do they come up with? And then we try to figure out where the problem exists.
Joe, send me a copy of the test you're planning on doing, the persons doing it, the specific counts and thresholds for those tests, the date that it's going to be done so I could take side-by-side sampling, and then we'll have a discussion. Anything other than that, Joe, I think you're trespassing.
Well, I think you're trespassing, expecting us to come up with something we're not aware of at this point.
Well,
I mean,
exactly.
we
You're not
do
aware of
testing.
anything. So
No, we
listen,
do
guys.
testing at specific storm drains where there have been historical problems, and we just back check just to make sure. That starts
Again.
all the way up. It starts all the way up the Norwalk River, and it comes along the coast. It checks every beach that is a public beach, and it also does checks on some of the private beaches, such as Bailey Beach. And in the past, I know they checked Roten Point Beach, and we're waiting.
And Joe, just focusing in on the one sentence you had, at locations where there have been previously known issues.
Correct.
Right?
But they
So
got those
we don't
issues.
have that. Excuse me.
But they
We
got
don't
those
have that.
issues. They got the issues because they did a random test. We had two college students that were hired to walk the entire coastline and collect samples from every drain that was there. And that was turned over to the Department of Health. The Department of Health ran tests on those. And those tests, in all honesty, were mostly for E. coli. And that's what they were concerned about.
John,
And-
in the absence of a specific test, the thresholds that you're looking at, who's taking them, establishing the chain of custody, and giving us the opportunity to do side-by-side testing, the answer is no. And that's
You don't
what it
have,
is.
I hate to tell you this, Mitch. We have the right to test the water. We do.
Test it from the sound side.
Sure.
Thanks.
We do.
Test it from the sound. Joe, test it from the sound side, and then tell me what those counts are, and then tell me that you need to come in to see where the source is.
Sure.
That
If we have to.
that makes sense.
I don't, at this point, there's been no documentation of any problem. Now, if we get a call from aquaculture saying they're getting some high counts. Now, aquaculture not only tests for E. coli, but they test for several other things that could impact shellfish. Then we'd have to take a look at what's going on in the area.
Yeah, Joe, it would be reasonable if you, as a part of regular testing within Norwalk Harbor, then went to look to see, say 100 feet off the coastline, then look to see where that source is. That would make sense.
Well, it wouldn't.
Right?
It would not.
Guys,
And what we found from Westport was, for years, Westport had good grades on their testing, and their beaches were open because they were testing 100 to 200 yards off the beach, not where the people were actually swimming. And because of that, they had lower counts.
Peter, Stephen, hold on, Mitch. Stephen, do you want to weigh in at all at this point?
No, so certainly, Mitch, we welcome your commentary at Shellfish next week. And the experimental design, replicate testing, and chain of custody is automatic. So please, we'd welcome parallel testing.
And it's not like you wouldn't be notified when that testing is going to take place. Correct me if I'm wrong. Would you tell him what the protocol would be? Because if they want to do parallel testing,
Yeah. So it would follow.
Be an issue.
It would follow the Bureau of Aquaculture's protocol and would be conducted by DABA personnel.
As I've said, to the extent you're looking, you have found an issue of E. coli in Long Island Sound in the waters off of Wilson Point, and then you want to see if you can trace that back to a specific catch basin or location. I don't have an issue with that. I do have an issue with doing random sampling, looking to see if there's a problem, when one is not known to exist, based upon really somebody who has a bone to pick with the Wilson Point board, because that's what this is all about.
Oh, Mitch, I absolutely agree with what your statement is. I'm fully in concurrence of that. Absolutely agree with you, 100%. 100%.
All right, well, let's close this off here at this point, and I think this will continue next week in Shellfish, because that's where the action is stemming from, not from the Harbor Commission. So, but
thank you, gentlemen.
We gave you the courtesy because we extended that same courtesy under public remarks. Actually, you got 3 times the time that she had. Hope she doesn't ask for equal time, because then we're really in trouble. So continue it to be continued next week. Is there any other public comment?
Gentlemen, thank you.
You're welcome. Approval of the minutes. Does someone make a motion?
Yeah. Well, I know they were amended, John. I'll approve. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
Okay, and a second? Second by Dennis Santella. Any other comments or any other business to come before the commission? Not hearing any. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Okay. All in favor? Abstentions? Good night, everybody. Nice meeting. Hopefully, we'll get a reading that we'll be able to meet in person next month.
I hope so.
If not,
That'd be
it sounds like it could be July, but we'll see. I thought it was going to be not tonight, but didn't happen. All right, guys. Ciao for now. Let me go out.
Take care. Be safe.